evening. It is Thursday night. It is 8 p.m. Eastern time. It is ASTV, as the cool kids are all saying. That I don't know. I don't know any cool people, apart from us, of course. We're always the cool people. The American Scouser TV Thursday night podcast. We are joined, as ever, by Trevor. That wasn't not meant to rhyme. I'm not turning into Snoop Doggy Dog or one of those. How are you, Trevor?
Doing all right.
And we have, for the first time this week, we have Brian. How are you, Brian?
Doing fantastic. Ready for Saturday morning.
Yes, that's. We will get to that presently and anon, as they say in English. But we have other things to talk about before we get there. But yes, it's an exciting time after a brief hiatus from league soccer. We're back to the bread and butter this Saturday, and no better team to go up against than Manchester City. Especially with some of the news we are hearing in terms of people coming back from injuries, which will be fantastic if it all works out. So we'll start off with the first one, which is Luis Diaz back training, probably not ready for starting on Saturday, maybe not even ready for a substitute's appearance, but it surely is encouraging that we might have him back for the tail end of the season. Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, the fact that he's back and doing something more than just riding a bike is great. I'm really just hopeful for his stretch run of the year and what he can bring for this tail end of the season.
Brian, what do you think? Luis Diaz, he was magic before the injury. Can he be magic again?
I think after a couple of matches, maybe right there, in my opinion, right there, you kind of have to ease him into the situation. I definitely think that it will be a definite asset right there for us to have going forward. But I still think it might be a couple weeks past until he really makes a good impact.
In terms of Trevor, in terms of the front line, we have Jota back, we have Bobby back, we have Nunes. I think is possibly back from the shoulder injury or whatever that injury was. That almost was a mystery to us. We have Salah, of course. We have Gakpo if he hasn't eaten a chicken curry this week. We may moan and whinge about the midfield, but the attack is looking a bit sprightly coming to the end for the run-in, isn't it?
Yeah, and I hope this embarrassment of attacking riches gives Klopp that impetus to try some stuff, not necessarily just kind of, well, I got this guy that can do this. Kind of play with things a little bit, especially going down the stretch, and work guys in that you may have to use as combinations next year when guys like Bobby leave and stuff like that.
Brian, what do you think? Is it going to hide a multitude of midfield sins having all these attackers back, or are we still going to suffer for the fact that the engine room is stuttering a little bit?
My big concern is still that midfield. I mean, it's great to have all these attackers back, but we still have the concerns with about what we're going to do with the midfield, because I think that right there is our weakest link at the moment. Would definitely like to see more of that combination with what's going to be in the future, especially with Gakpo and Nunes combination together. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of promise and a lot of prospect right there, but I think that again, it's got to make the midfield work.
In terms of I think we mentioned it last week or the week before. In terms of attack, we're actually fifth in goals scored. Like, we're up there. Like, we look like a top four team if you don't look beyond the goals scored column towards the right. But our goals against is definitively mid-table. Are we scoring enough goals, Trevor, that we can overcome the defensive inefficiencies, or do you think they're almost psychologically giving up that they have to keep scoring 4 goals because we're going to concede 2 or 3?
Yeah, and it's that lack of consistency in the scoring that kind of makes it worse for the defense, because they know they have to be stalwarts to kind of just make, all right, we're only going to get 1 this week, so we have to keep a clean sheet, and it just spirals. They can't keep clean sheets, and then usually when we give up goals in bunches, and it just turns sour real quick. And for the first time, I've seen that center back pairing just pointing fingers at each other constantly, and that's never a good thing.
Brian, we have had experience in relatively recent years of having to outscore the opposition because we knew the defence wasn't up to scratch. There's a time Jurgen gave Brendan Rodgers a call and asked how he dealt with things. Probably not. But in terms of the midfield, if we almost focus too much on the defensive side of things with the midfield, will that affect the attack?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that, but again, it's just that little golden triangle in the middle between Fabinho and I guess Kanate and Verge right there, which if they're all on point right there, then I think that will be able to have the stability in defense right there to support the attack. It's just that transition right there, being able to support the attack with that and in transition. And I think that's one of the problems that we've had throughout this entire season is that up and down with Fabinho's fitness, Fabinho's how he's how communicating with Verge and how he's communicating with Matip or with Gomez, whoever sits in there. So I think that that in my opinion, I think that we still have to go in there and look at what fitness level that the holding midfielders in, because Fabinho to me is the key, and that position to me is the key.
Trevor, kind of to expand the worldview a tiny little bit. Let's say we get Luis Diaz back at least for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Capable of physically handling that without repeating the injury or anything. How does that influence Gakpo on the team? Where do we continue with Gakpo where he has been with Núñez swinging out to the left, or does Luis Diaz's return mean we're going to have to make some hard decisions?
Yeah, and I think if Núñez and Gakpo are going to be a combination that you're going to have going forward in terms of 1A, 1B is the number 9. Then I think you have to kind of not necessarily rotate them, but just give each combination an opportunity to see which one gels the best. Because I think Núñez is a more selfish guy, even out on the wing, whereas Diaz can score. That's perfectly evident from what he's done in his time with Liverpool. But he's definitely a guy that looks for the pass first. And if Gakpo can get to those spots, or even Núñez, it depends on which one has the best chemistry, I think, because Diaz is the guy that should be out there. You have Mo on one wing, and I think Diaz is the guy that should be on the other, with Jota as that super sub. And just kind of find which one of those two has the best chemistry with Diaz and make that your front three going forward into next year.
Brian, do you think there's because we've talked about this a lot on Thursday, do you think there is scope for maybe Klopp looking at possibly a 4-2-3-1 with Gakpo being the 10, Núñez being the 9, and Diaz and Salah on either side?
Sorry, I dropped for a minute right there. Go ahead and repeat again, Macka.
No.
Anyway, well, I was going to say the comment.
Just answer whatever question you think he asked.
Do that. No, what he said was with Diaz, if Diaz if we can get him back to full fitness, is there scope for Klopp to rethink things, move away from the 4-3-3, and then maybe think of a 4-2-3-1 with Gakpo as the 10, Diaz, Salah on either side, and then Núñez as the target man?
I mean, I definitely think we have all the pieces right there to go to 4-2-3-1. I mean, but again, it's with Klopp right there. It's the stubbornness right there of getting away from that 4-3-3. And so, I mean, I think that if we could do it and put in a Gakpo coach there sitting right behind Bobby, I think we can still use Bobby. I mean, it's at least for until Bobby leaves. I mean, he's an asset. I mean, his pressing and what he provides for us is I think still pretty detrimental to our system. But as far as like Diaz, I just don't know whether Diaz is going to be at that point right there to be at full fitness until at least toward May, maybe not even until next season. I mean, I know he's working pretty hard, but still have that. That's quite a double injury that he came back from.
Trevor, in terms of, if we look at Klopp, Dortmund Mainz, he was a 4-2-3-1 guy, but he seems almost stubbornly married to that 4-3-3, and with that embarrassment of attacking riches, it almost seems like 4 attackers is the way to go for us regardless. Is Klopp, just to digress away from the attackers and go to Klopp, is he a little bit almost Arsene Wenger like, who took a long time to change with the modern demands of the game, and it was almost too late at that point to move away from his 4-3-3 or his 4-5-1 or whatever it was to a more modern formation?
Yeah, and that's the part that is the most frustrating with Klopp, is he's shown you glimmers throughout his entire run here that when there's times that change is necessary, and he will do that. And almost every time he has, we've come out looking better on the other end, but then just immediate, well, can't keep this up, or I don't know what thought process is going through his head, but it's just, well, that was fun for a week. Let's go back to this thing. And it's just been over and over and over again of him trying something. Okay, yeah, doing the 4 attacker thing against Real Madrid in the second leg didn't work, but that was an uphill climb to begin with. How about all the other instances where he's run those guys out in those type of instances when we started to lose all those guys to injury towards the start of the season? And it wasn't out of tactical changes. It was out of complete necessity. And it looked positive. But in the end, one guy comes back, it's like, well, don't have to do that anymore. Oof, that unpleasantness. And then here we are.
Brian, in terms of because I know a reasonable amount about German football tactics, through history, and a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-4-2, it's almost like the German standard. Certainly the 4-2-3-1. The 4-3-3 is a very Dutch standard. It's pretty much the formation that every single team in Holland plays from youth level upwards. Does the insistence on the 4-3-3 suggest that Pep Linders has a lot more influence on the overall strategy than we would like to think, maybe?
Absolutely. I was about to say that. Absolutely. I definitely think that's Pep Linders will touch on it, especially with his experience with the Portuguese sides, which have adopted a lot of that same type of Dutch tactics with the 4-3-3. So yeah, definitely. I think it's a lot has to do with them. But I think also you're going to have to go to, if we're going to play catch up right there, is the 4-3-3 with not having the right tools to play a 4-3-3 smart.
Trevor, we could talk a little bit about Jurgen Klopp's inability to change, and as you said, there have been glimmers now and again. But if we remember back to when he took over the Brendan Rodgers team, the first formation he played was that 4-3-2-1 pyramid to try and make the team defensively solid for us, because we were shifting goals left, right, and centre. We weren't quite scoring as much either, because I think we had 5 draws in the 8 games of that season that Brendan Rodgers had. So he's definitely amenable to change. Is it that he's becoming a lot more hands off as time has gone on, and maybe we need him to take the reins a little bit more?
Well, I don't think he's necessarily become hands off. I think it was more, like you said, when he came in, it was a house on fire, and I think he was just trying to use every single method at his disposal to put it out. Whereas now he has his Liverpool resume. He doesn't really have much to worry about in terms of just that instability from a macro standpoint. Like, on a micro scale, yeah, week to week, because we all watch every game and we kind of nitpick certain things, and we have stuff that we've hammered on over and over and over and over again about things that annoy us with how he runs his system and how he's so stubborn. But I think at this stage of the game, he really needs not to necessarily be more engaged with it, but just kind of look at it from the canvas of this is where you're at. You don't have all of these players that you used to have. Stadio's not here anymore. There's a lot of guys that have fallen off form, and you need to just adjust. And adjusting and adapting is, two words that I've beaten over the head with a stick over and over again all of this year. And until he does it, I'm gonna keep swinging.
Brian, for people like me who are fans of the Ted Lasso show on television, Luis Diaz he kind of has that Luis Suarez effect. I think sometimes that you want to see what he's going to do on the ball when he gets the ball. It's exciting, it's unpredictable. Does the return of Luis Diaz, do you think, if for anybody, if you watch Ted Lasso, if you don't, this might mean completely nothing to anybody, but the Zavat effect, is he going to energize that dressing room by his very presence? Even if he wasn't a superstar, players know that he's a bit special.
I think they know he's a bit special, but I just don't think he has. Again, I've never watched Ted Lasso, but he doesn't have that exact dominant personality right there, and that you would assume right there. Again, the dominant personalities in that locker room right there definitely are people like Bobby Firmino and that right there who bring everybody out. I think with Diaz right there, it's like he's like having that speedster right there, and I think that is what it causes the excitement, because he's, again, he gets on the pitch, flies down the wing, everybody's on their feet. Okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Now, as far as the Luis Suarez thing, I don't think he definitely does not have that unpredictability that Suarez had.
Trevor, what do you think?
I do think with Luis Diaz, it's almost like watching a car race down your street. You're thinking, okay, this could either just go, it's a fast car, or it could just completely fall flat on its face or crash. I think for a lot of times during his run with this club, it's just been, that's a cool fast car that's going down, and it's going to do some type of e-brake turn, and it's going to be really cool. But when he got hurt, that was the crash, and now we're trying to see if he's gun shy about gunning it down the street again. And I'm not necessarily, just because I didn't watch a ton of Porto, so I don't know if he has that bounce back ability. I'm hoping he does, just because he's that important to the cause. But I really think that in terms of the unpredictability that you guys were talking about, it's not the same as Suarez in terms of is he going to try to lob the keeper from 35 yards at 25 degree angle? Because that's some shit that he'd pull just out of nowhere. Whereas Diaz, it's more of, okay, he's going to just absolutely torch the right back, but is he going to, since we're just pulling out movie references, is he going to Luis Mendoza from Mighty Ducks to it and just not know how to stop and just get to the point where he has to cross it because he just ran by everybody and just has to fling it into nothing? Or is he going to be able to be more composed and get to those spots and be able to pick out a good pass and get it on Darwin's head? And we'll see. And we'll see, coming back from an injury, whether or not that almost slows him down, which I think will help him in the long run.
I think, though, in terms of our attack, I believe Diaz is even now has the most long shots from outside of the box, which I think is something that we've sorely missed since he's been injured. Nobody seems to want to take a shot from outside of the box, except for maybe Trent now and again. But I think he's aiming to get the ball over the roof as part of a bet or something like that. But either way, I think it's good that he's back. It's going to be a nice boost for the team, and a nice, at least for the first few weeks, a nice little option to have for maybe 10, 15 minutes at the end of a game, to try and create, maybe not like, to be fair with Suarez, you didn't know, as you said, whether he was going to try some bizarre 35-yard -1 degree angled shot into the top corner, or if he was going to bite the referee on the arm. So there was a whole different level of unpredictability with Suarez that we can't judge anybody else by. But it'd be nice to have something a little bit different again on the pitch, to help the attack. And as I said, I think you're right. I think at some point a partnership or a combination between him, Nunes, and Gakpo could be something incredibly exciting to watch and incredibly painful to defend against. But let's move on to the next thing. Rumors in the rumor mill that comes out every single day when there's no soccer during international weeks. Mason Mount being increasingly strongly connected to Liverpool Football Club. Brian, what do you think of that connection?
I'm in between whether this is agent-induced articles to try to go there to get a better deal for Mason Mount, since he is probably one of the lower paid people at Chelsea at the moment, as far as like experience and as the time it's there. But I also go there and think about where Mason Mount would actually fit in our midfield, and whether we would actually have to change our entire lineup right there, the entire formation to fit a Mason Mount. I mean, then you also think, what are we going to do with Carvalho? What are we going to do with Harvey Elliott if we bring him in there? Because I mean, they all play somewhat similar positions and all that. So where do we go there? What do we do with Mason Mount? I mean, especially if we're going to supposedly go for this giant Jude Bellingham thing that everybody talks about. Where does money come from, and where do we put all these pieces of the puzzle at?
Trevor, is it possible that we're going to lose a lot more midfielders than we maybe think, in terms of, Thiago? Possibly, I saw something today that Thiago may not be a Liverpool player next season. Again, according to the rumor mill, whoever she is. Is it possible we're going to get somebody to take Fabinho's place that's a proper vicious tackler, or Bajcetic coming back from injury or whatever, with Harvey Elliott and Mason Mount? Because let's be realistic, the way FSG spend cash, we are not getting Jude Bellingham financially, at least, because they won't play that game. So is it possible we're looking to retool that midfield into something a lot more youthful and maybe a lot more technical than we're used to?
Yeah, and going back to what Brian said, because I like Mount as a player, but there would have to be a significant tactical shift for him to just fit into the team. Because if we're gonna go to this 4-2-3-1, and you're gonna have to have two killers in those pivot roles, he ain't a killer in my eyes. He's a guy that is very technically sound. He can really weave through the middle of the pitch, but also be useful out on the wings. But you have a bunch of guys laying in the wings that do you really want to just have Mason Mount be the guy that leaps over them? Yeah, if we're bringing in Bellingham, or if we're bringing in any of the big like Barcelona guys that are seemingly out. Yeah, if it was Gavi or Jude Bellingham, yeah, I'm sure Harvey Elliott wouldn't be too torn up to get pushed down the pecking order. But Mason Mount, I think, is just on that step below where it could cause some friction. And I don't think he's a guy that's worth that.
Brian,
with a $70 million price tag.
Brian, I'm going to throw this one to you, but Trevor can chime in after, because it's a little bit of a curveball. Is it possible that if we are really interested in Mason Mount, and because he can play on the wing, that we're looking for support and eventual replacement for Salah on that side?
Oh, I think I've been saying to everybody, I think that the bumper deal that was given to Salah last year was a year appeasement right there, and I still think that Salah will not be with us next season. I think that we gave him the extra time, and we could not go there lose Mane and Salah both at the same time. But I think that eventually, right there, that there will be a replacement for Salah, and I'm not sure if Mount's that guy either that would make that replacement.
In terms of Trevor, in terms of I mean, you're never going to get direct like for like replacements. If we are looking at Mason Mount, if we are looking at Harvey Elliott being a starting midfielder, if we are looking at Jude Bellingham, once again, I have to say, does this indicate that Pep Linders is having a lot more say in things? Because that's a very Dutch kind of way of building a team with a lot more technique than hefty brawn and athleticism that we're used to. And does that maybe indicate where those problems are being caused that are causing our scouts to run away from the our data people and all that, to be constantly leaving the club under clouds of dust? Is it possible that Pep Linders is trying to reshape this team in Pep Linders' image rather than Jurgen Klopp's image?
That's a legitimate question to be had, and I don't necessarily know the answer. Just
why don't you know the answer, Trevor?
God, I can't. But it does seem that way. If we're going to paint with the speculation brush, it seems that a lot of these moves are being not necessarily consummated, but being thrown out there to kind of appease how Pep would, I don't know, necessarily take over if Jurgen were to leave, or if it was something where he can point to it as a resume bullet point of, look at all these guys I brought in here, and they did these things that I thought of. And now if you hire me, this is what I can bring to the table. I don't know if it's necessarily subterfuge or sabotage or just a guy that's too big for his britches. Either way, I don't think Mount would be the guy to take Mo's place. I kind of begrudgingly agree with Brian that I don't think Mo is long for he's not going to see out, I think, even half of his new contract. Because if they were ever going to sell him and break this FSG trend of just letting guys leave on freeze, Mo is the guy that has the most value, and you could just flip that money into something, even if it's 2 or 3 guys. You hate to see a big fee go up, like the Torres for Suarez and Carroll. You're always going to have that Andy Carroll there. And the fact that Suarez was so good, that's usually not how it works when you're taking a poo-poo platter back for a filet mignon, pretty much.
Brian, I think you're probably both right that we won't be seeing Mo Salah for long. Let me throw a scenario at you and see what you think. Is it possible that we know Mo Salah is going, and we know who's going to buy him, and we know exactly how much they're going to pay for him? Let's say PSG or Real Madrid, for example. And we're going to get a hefty amount of money that we're going to go for Mount, and we're going to go for Bellingham, and we're going to go for 1 or 2 younger defenders maybe to beef up the defense.
Yeah, I could legitimately go there and believe that. I think the whole little thing where you had the meeting in London with Salah and stuff like that, I think there was a lot more to that than meets the eye. I don't think there was anything involving this supposed takeover that was going to happen with us and all that. I don't think that was ever going to happen to begin with. But I think that I definitely see PSG or Real Madrid, especially that with Valverde coach there sitting in that same exact position right now where Mo would walk back into and would walk into. But again, with PSG, with what's going to happen with them, because apparently with Mbappe is ready to walk, I mean, they're going to have somebody highlight. And what would be the best thing for for PSG right there to have a Arab talisman right there for their ownership right there. And that's something that Galley was talking about on Monday. Same thing. I mean, it'd be a good transition right there for them, and it'd be a good PR move right there for the PSG owners to go and sign. It's a sign Salah. But I think that Real Madrid is going to be the one to actually go and to make the move. So it just depends on what Mbappe does that will determine what Real Madrid is going to do.
Darren O'Connor makes a great point there, and hello to Darren. He's a sole comment. He's taken over your job, Brian. He's the sole commenter today. Who gets his 30+ goals guarantee this season like Salah does? It's a good point, but Trevor, is that a reason to not make those kinds of trades to boost other areas of the field, or should we try and hold on to dear life for Salah because of the unknown, like a fear of the unknown or a fear of missing out?
Well, yeah, it's the way we've been doing it these past few years and getting nothing for these guys over that crippling fear of, oh, well, especially when Sadio wanted to leave originally and probably could have got double what we ended up getting from Bayern. But it was kind of just, hey, let's see if we can run this back one more time, this, that, and the other thing, and all of this. I don't want to say it's misplaced loyalty, but it is expired loyalty. I'll say that. There's a lot of these guys that I don't want to say they've broken past their primes, but they're breaking past their prime price. And there has to be that fulcrum point where you're not necessarily burning the team down just to make money, but you also have to kind of balance with, yes, this guy is going to get me $100 million right now. And yes, it's going to be a hit, but the guys that we're going to get with that money are going to make the next 3 years great. So yeah, it may suck now, but the back end of it is going to be where we see those rewards. It's not going to be, okay, we sold our 30 goal scorer and then we immediately bought a 30 goal scorer. It just doesn't work that way. And I think once we kind of just get past that initial fear, a lot more things will fall into place. And maybe Darwin becomes that guy. Maybe Gakpo, if they kind of let him play the way he plays for the Dutch national team, which if we're going to talk about teams on fire, we could reference that at some point. But there's so many things that could just be if that part of the equation is taken out and you give it a different variable. We don't know.
Let's kind of just circle back to Mason Mount before we move on to the next thing. If we just look at his stats a little bit there, these are just Premier League stats because it's the bread and butter, etc., etc. Last 4 seasons, goals scored on that central column, and then assists right beside it, and then yellows and reds, of course, after that. Thank you, transfer market. But he's obviously had one banner season there, 2 decent seasons, and then obviously this season not as good as the rest. So my question is, are those numbers that we would like to get into our team, regardless of what position we end up playing them, or are we really specifically looking for certain types of players in the midfield, Brian?
But we said the same thing about Jordan Henderson so many times. I mean, it's like look at the Jordan Henderson's goal production over the years. I mean, you're not seeing magic numbers in there, but you're also seeing his organizational ability that he has. And I think I see a lot of Jordan Henderson and Mason Mount the way he plays as a young, and with that he's got that same type of a possession of football that he plays. I think that he needs to be honed in. I think that when we first started with Howie, we had the bad expectations about Henderson taking over the captaincy when Gerrard left. But I mean, what better captain have you ever had right there? I mean, you just don't know until you get somebody into that situation. I think that Mason Mount right there does have lots of potential. Again, this goes back to don't know where to put him at. I mean, unless you go there and make a lot of moves right there, where does he go in the side? I mean, it's like, are you willing to go out there and tell Harvey Elliott, hey, guess what? You did so many great things right there. We have so much potential, but we're going to push it to back burner right there for this guy that you're going to bring in. And it's like, what do you do with Mason Mount? I mean, I love to have the weapons, but football is sort of play, and where you can't get everybody on the pitch.
Trevor, let me kind of throw a flip on that, because I think that's a good comparison between Mason Mount and Jordan Henderson. If we assume Thiago is getting older rather, pardon me, he's not old, but he's getting older, and he's also getting more injury prone. And as we've discussed many times, there are certain games that we play during the season where he just doesn't fit the game, and he's almost like a luxury player, which we've mentioned before. If we have a new Fabinho, say, should we be worrying about the likes of Carvalho, or should we just be going for what's best? Because a good, solid Mascherano type number 6 in front of the defense with Mason Mount and Harvey Elliott in front of him doing the technical running and the leg work and the skill, with Gakpo, Nunez, Salah, let's just say for argument's sake for now, or Luis Diaz or Jota in front of them, it sounds quite tasty, doesn't it?
From that standpoint, I think if you're making whoever's over there and taking Thiago out of the equation, I think if you're going to make that Mount spot in this hypothetical, I think that works. But if we're kind of trying to shoehorn all of these attacking guys into the everyday lineup, I don't think it does, because I think in that instance you need two guys that are going to be kind of double Fabinhos, if you will. And with him kind of falling off a cliff this year, and Bajcetic, even with his injury, I don't think is necessarily the guy that should be leading that unit. He should definitely still be the Robin of a double pivot. I really think that if Mount would come in, it would be not just Thiago leaving. I think there would be 3 or 4 guys leaving at that point to kind of just give him all those options to get into the team organically, instead of just going, well, this is where we don't have somebody anymore. Figure it the fuck out.
Brian, let me throw a little wrinkle in. Let's say Salah goes. Let's say he goes to PSG. Harvey Elliott takes his spot. Mount and Bellingham. Let's just say in the fantasy, we've done a good job. We've been good little boys and girls at Liverpool Football Club, and we're going to get an early birthday present, and we somehow get Jude Bellingham into Liverpool. Mount, Bellingham, Harvey Elliott, Nunez, Gakpo, and then some other holding midfielder there. Does that put us on a whole other level than we would have expected if we, the kind of the fear of losing Salah and losing Milner and Henderson as regular players and losing Thiago as that nice luxury player? Is that a good basis to build the future on?
Oh, it definitely puts us on a whole different level. I mean, sorry, I blanked out again. Starlink is being foolish today. But yeah, it definitely puts us on a whole different level. That's why I can't there think that I'm open. I'm definitely open for Mo Salah to get sold, because I think that we can actually go and move on to the next level. We've done it before. I mean, look at what we did with Coutinho. I mean, we built it. We look at the amount of wins, the amount of silverware we got off of selling Coutinho for an over inflated price. I mean, and it's like, I think that we can build a good side. I think that, again, like you said, Gakpo can go in there and can move over. I mean, I think and you could realign the entire front of that side of the side. And the midfield, again, is going to be the troubling thing right there with the midfield to me. Again, like you were talking about earlier, you're still not having a strong holding midfield around that group. I mean, so you're still opening up yourself to problems on that. And again, we have so many other issues that we have to also solve. You still have to solve. We need a third center back. I mean that in there that's reliable. I mean because you have the team right there is AJ and Gomez. I don't even know what we get every week from Gomez. One week it's great. Next week right there, we don't know. We need it. Again, like we talked about before on Monday. You still needed somebody to come out there to back up Trent also. So there's so many things right there that we have to fund. And Mo may be that guy to come out there to push at least 60, 70 million that somebody be willing to come out there and pay for Mo right now. I don't think you're going to go any more than that. I think about that little window is about as far as you're going to go.
And then just before we move on to the last major topic of the night, the most important question is, should I be the new sporting director of Liverpool Football Club? Bearing in mind, I will be happily paid in a free pizza every day and a glass of chocolate milk. I think those are good terms.
You got it. Yep.
So,
just get it in writing so they can't skimp.
Because they'll instead of getting me proper pizza, they'll probably get me Elio's or something like that, or like something from the Stop and Shop frozen aisle.
Yeah, none of this French bread bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Stoof it up here, whatever. So let's move on to the next topic of the night and the last serious one. And we will obviously, because we've had that nice break, we will now talk about the pep in our step. Basically, the question boils down to this, Trevor: do we have a chance of beating City this weekend?
And the big thing, of course, with City coming up is whether or not Erling Haaland's going to play. And I for one seem to be in the lesser camp of I almost want him to play, because I think against us it takes away from everything that makes City dangerous, because they're so focused at getting him the ball that none of their other guys try to do the things that they can do great. Yeah, he can get his 3 touches against West Ham and score twice, but there's just so much more tension in the bigger games that they actively are trying to just get him the ball just to get him more active, which I think for him is counterintuitive. He's a guy that works in the small bursts. He doesn't need to have the ball at his feet all the time. He's great at just getting to spots and reading situations where, but from that standpoint, Foden being out has allowed Jack Grealish to get a lot more playing time, and now he's starting to look almost, I'd say 3/4 of the way towards his price tag. He's not quite there yet. No, nor do I think he'll ever be there. But I think Haaland being out allows City to play with that weird false 9, or play with diet Sergio Aguero, Julian Alvarez, and really just kind of cut us to pieces with the whole death by 1,000 passes type deal. And I'd almost rather have Haaland in there, especially if he's hobbled, because even a 50% Haaland, they're still going to try to just alter their game plan to get him the ball and get him goals, which leaves them completely open to a counterattack. And I think that's how we win.
Brian, I think that's a great point that Trevor makes in the terms of with Haaland on the team in the big games. It almost makes Man City the most predictable they ever are, really, under Pep Guardiola. But Pep has been in this situation before with Messi. He's been in this situation where he's had a figurehead attacker that everybody concentrated on, but the difference being with Messi is Messi understood that and knew how to use it to the team's advantage and release Xavi and release Iniesta. And then, like Thierry Henry, etc. later on. But Haaland is so focused on just scoring all the goals that it almost is counterproductive to have him on the team in these big games, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that watching their side right there with early on trying to go there and get the ball to Holland, and again that was like Trevor was saying, that was their whole focus right there is trying to get the ball to Holland because of who he is. And I think that takes away from their game. Now, if you get there and put with Alvarez is playing, I think you have a whole entire different animal with Alvarez, where he's not that same player where that Holland is. He's a more of a link up player, have link up play.
Trevor, in terms of our lineup, how do you see us going?
I think it'd be naive to think it's not going to be 4-3-3. It's going to be same old song and dance on the back. The biggest thing for me is what he does in the midfield, because I think whoever he puts up front, they're going to have those responsibilities, and they're going to run. I think against City, even Gakpo's going to run. The guy who we least expect to press effectively. I think just for the magnitude of this game, Gakpo is going to fucking run his ass off. So whoever is picked up front, I think those decisions are completely irrelevant. I don't want to downplay. Oh well, if we put midfield, I think is where the most focus needs to be, and I'm just genuinely dumbfounded with what he's going to do. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to trust Fabinho to be that guy in the middle that's going to wipe out all of these City, the 70 triangles that they're going to try to run through the middle of the park. I don't know who he trusts anymore. I don't know who's fully healthy. The midfield scares the shit out of me. I hope that we can just do something that with a little bit of an attacking flair to kind of just make less impetus on the midfield as being defensive cover and more of just an offensive lever, just a release valve.
Brian, in terms of the fullbacks, Andy Robertson is going to come back from international week on a high because Scotland did such a great job there against Spain.
Yep.
And maybe, do you think it's possible Trent will come back from the international week, even though he wasn't involved, I think, in England, that he'll have a point to prove? Is it possible that we're going to see our two fullbacks have their joint best games of the season against City, or will it be more of the same from Trent?
I think Trent really comes up for the matches like this. This whole side comes up for matches like this. That we've we've been Robin Hood all season right there. We've actually had our best matches against the top parts of the table, where we'll go out there and beat City. We'll go on a run this time right there. We'll beat Chelsea. We'll beat City. We'll beat Arsenal, and then we're going to lose to Nottingham Forest. I mean, that's kind of the
we'll get beat 3-0.
Yes, exactly. That's the rhythm that we're on right now. I mean, I think that we have the weapons to, but I think that both sides coming off an international break and because the Skies actually footballing the TV rights, we had to become the 12:30 match, which throws into a whole another animal right there with how TV money gets thrown around for ties like this. I think that it's good to me for a draw. I mean, I see a draw all day with this. I think that both sides are going to be stuttering out off their steps. I think that City still has a mentality right now issue with this Arsenal side that just keeps on doing things that like Leicester City did right there, winning matches at the 93rd minute and oddball stuff like that. Really punching above their weight. So I think that I could definitely see a draw, but I think that Trent and Robbo are going to have decent games. I think we're going to see Trent do the same Trent stuff, where all of a sudden he just goes missing somehow, and you're going to see a goal get scored off of him, in some way or form.
Yeah, Trevor, score-wise, what's your prediction for the weekend?
I I can't steal Brian's draw, so I'm gonna go 2 under the good guys because I still can't see us keeping a clean sheet against City. The last game, it still boggles my mind how that ended the way it did. But yeah, 2-1. But we score first. I have to put it. I have to put it into the karmic ether. We score first.
Okay, I think I'm gonna book the trend. I'm gonna say 3-0 win for the good guys.
And I'm 2-2. 2-2, like I said on Monday.
We'll see how it goes on Saturday. So just one more thing before we go. This will be a quick one this week. It's the threshold question. And in the spirit of the coming of the end of the Christian season of Lent, etc., let's just assume that there's a hell and we're all in it together forever and ever and ever. But you have one of two scenarios that you have to live in eternity. So the question is, would you rather spend an eternity of hell watching Manchester United score a league-winning last-second goal against Liverpool to pip us to the title, or would you rather be an Everton fan for the rest of eternity? What do you pick? Forever.
We're in like the 7th ring with this shit, man. Oh God. That's I think I'm just gonna go with the Everton fan because I don't have to watch the pain. I can just live the pain. I don't have to have that just repeating cycle of just getting hit at that one point, that gut punch. Just as an Everton fan, your entire life is a gut punch. So eventually you're just going to end up like that guy that gets shot in the gut with a cannonball. You're just going to be immune to it. So yeah, that's my 7th ring of hell scenario.
Brian, which one would you choose?
Definitely be an Everton supporter right there. If I could shine the empty trophy cabinet for the rest of my eternity.
I think that's possibly the best option is to just be an Everton fan because at least you're going to be used to the pain. Whereas
you're going to be used to getting set on fire. There's not going to be much change between hell and being an Everton fan to begin with. Yeah, so it's a natural progression, really.
Yeah, we could spend the rest of eternity asking Bill Kenwright where the redemption money was. Nobody knows, it doesn't exist. So that's it for tonight's show. The EPL, the fantasy show is on with the boys next with Gali and the Polish Prince. Make sure you stay tuned for that. We have the morning coffee tomorrow morning, I believe, early, nice and early and caffeinated. So make sure you pay attention, and then keep an eye out. There may be some surprise pre or post match events going on after the City game on Sunday, and we'll have the Monday podcast next week to start us off. Make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of the socials. Hit that button, as they always say. And we will join you again next week. A big thanks to Brian and a big thanks to Trevor for joining us and giving such great banter. And one day we will get Trevor to shave his head so we can have a nice little club of eggs. We could be the.
But I just want to close on this, because I know Alan's going to watch this probably after the fact. The plant is not dead. It's just outside now.
It's on vacation. We're just ready to say thank you, everybody. Stay tuned for the fantasy show, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend and enjoy the game. Up the tricky Reds, as they say, and peace out.